The story is about Henry Morris, the first ever wizard to draw the 8th circle. He has been poisoned and is now walking while in handcuffs. The current emperor, Silver Jackson Edward, is abusing his power to get rid of his enemies. He is falsely charging them with treason so that he can eliminate them. Henry Morris is now one of his targets. He kneels before the emperor and the official asks him if he admits to treason. Henry stays silent. But when the official mentions his family, he glares at him and tells him to just get it over with. The emperor gets upset and Henry gets sentenced to death. So the executioner, Behold, decapitates him. After that, the emperor orders his men to feed Henry's remains to the animals. The scene then switches to a young man. Henry is in that boy's body and he has no idea what's going on. He realizes that he's holding on to a book of necromancy and a dead hen. So he suspects that he is involved in necromancy. Henry looks at the mirror and he can't believe his eyes. He tries to make sense of what is happening. Seeing that he's out of shape, Henry thinks that maybe he's a wizard, so he tries to conjure some magic, but he realizes that he has none. So he struggles to draw the basic first circle of magic. He eventually succeeds. Just then, Henry remembers the time when the emperor forced him to drink poison by threatening a young boy's life. It is then revealed that a wizard's weakness is a fragile body, so poison is very effective against them. He admires the knight's strength and thinks that he could have survived the events if his body was stronger. Henry leaves his room and he sees Koer, his attendant, sleeping in the corner. The guy wakes up and he starts acting rude. So Henry beats him up. Koer bows before him and apologizes. He starts to show respect towards his master. Henry asks him what date it is and the man replies that it's July 6th of the year 20. The day after he was executed. He learns that his name is still Henry Morris and his father is Baron Hans Morris, a war veteran. Henry digs deeper and he discovers that his mother died while giving birth to him. Apparently, he has achieved nothing in the past and so the family members turn their attention towards his younger half-brother Kevin Morris. After that, Henry pulls an all-nighter to practice magic with his body. He succeeds in drawing the 2nd and 3rd circles. The next morning, his attendant brings him some water and he notices that his master is sweating a lot. He leaves the water in the master's room and Henry cleans himself up. After that, he heads to the dining room with his family. They start eating. While eating, he notices that Kevin eats like a pig. So Henry tells him to eat like a gentleman, but he just laughs while his mouth is full. The food from Kevin's mouth mixed up with his food and he lost his appetite. At that moment, Hans asks them who is going to enroll in the Swordsman Academy. Henry considers it, but he thinks it would be better for him to just focus on magic since he wants to get revenge on the emperor as soon as possible. Kevin says he is going to enter the academy because his older brother will just do nothing there. He adds that Henry doesn't even have the guts to spar with him. Hans asks Henry what he thinks about it. Henry changes his mind and decides to enter the academy. He tells his younger brother that he refuses to spar with him because he doesn't want Kevin to look bad. But everyone in the table just laughs at him. They all think he's joking. However, Henry says that he's serious and he challenges his brother to a duel. They head to the training ground. Kevin gives him a wooden sword. Hans states that whoever surrenders first loses. The duel begins and Henry uses his magic to enhance his physical abilities. He charges at Kevin and swings his sword at his brother. Everyone gets surprised and Kevin struggles against him. Henry grabs his brother by the neck and sweeps his leg, causing him to fall. He then strikes Kevin, who is still struggling to get up. Henry keeps hitting Kevin and Hans stops the duel. He tells his father that they will talk tomorrow and he leaves the scene while Kevin is still on the ground shaking. While taking a bath, Henry remarks that his body is not bad. He tries to draw the 4th circle of magic but he fails because he lacks magical power. So he calls out to Koer and orders him to get some herbs. He plans to use them as ingredients to create a magical blue elixir that can enhance his magical powers. However, he reveals that it is risky since it can overstimulate the heart and cause it to explode if taken at the wrong dose. Koer returns with the ingredients. But he wasn't able to find a green crow flower. The merchant tells him that he does not have supplies for that item since a group of bandits are blocking the trade route. He learns that Hans can't get rid of the bandits and he thinks that his father is incompetent. Henry then tells Koer that he is going to the trade route with 2 horses. Koer comments that there are more than 30 bandits. Henry doesn't care. He tells Koer that he's coming along. Later, we see Koer with a skinny horse. He tells his master that it is his personal horse. Henry then asks for a sword among other things that are necessary for survival. He names his skinny horse Jade and casts a spell to make his mount stronger. After that, Koa returns and he is surprised to see the horse in perfect condition. But Henry tells him that it is still the same horse. Koa finds it hard to believe as they leave for the trade route. He puts on some jewelry in an attempt to attract the bandits. They slowly move around so that they will get targeted. During the process, Koa gets scared and suggests retreating. But Henry tells him not to worry. Later, they get surrounded by a group of bandits. Koa starts freaking out and their leader comments on their strange behavior while traveling. He then demands that Henry hand over his valuables if he doesn't want to die. Koa panics and Henry knocks him out. He alights from his horse and the bandit leader orders his men to attack. Henry notes that there are only 25 bandits. The leader calls him crazy. In response, Henry snaps his finger and some blue bubbles appear on the bandits' heads. The bubbles knock them out. The leader falls to the ground and Henry uses fire magic to scare him. After that, he tells the bandits to leave and never return. Koa later regains consciousness. Henry tells him that the bandits all ran away. They return home and Koa puts the jewelry back to where he found them while Henry brings his horse to the stable. Meanwhile, Kevin wakes up. He remembers that his brother beat him in the duel. His mother gets angry and she starts shouting at him. Kevin has a hard time accepting the result of the duel. In the stable, Henry is having a look at the other horses. They are all in good condition. He looks at Jade's stall and it looks embarrassing. After seeing this, Henry tells the stableman to look after the horse and its stall. While having dinner, they talk about the result of the duel. They ask Kevin's mother, Mrs. Morris, about it. But she gets upset and leaves. Hans asks his son how he became such a fine swordsman. Henry replies that he just wanted to teach his brother a lesson. Hans asks him if he wants to enter the academy, but Henry thinks Kevin should go instead. His father gets surprised and Henry has a request for him. He asks his father to send Kevin to him whenever Hans has complaints against his brother. Hans agrees. Henry also tells his father that the bandits are gone now. Later, Kevin visits him in his room. He apologizes for his bad behavior. Henry tells him that he has decided to give up the academy. He's going to let his brother go there under one condition. Kevin must give him a green crown flower within 6 days. Although he knows this is a difficult task, he accepts it anyways. Back in the stable, the white horse, Vernon, tries to pick a fight with Jade. Jade gets annoyed and he fights back. The next day, Kevin sees his horse Vernon lying on the floor. He gets angry at the stableman who starts begging for forgiveness. Kevin tells him to get another horse. He looks around and sees Jade. He tries to take the horse but Jade refuses to go with him. The stableman tells him that it belongs to Master Henry. Kevin remembers that the horse used to be so skinny. The stableman suggests that he ride another horse named Holter and he sets off with it. Meanwhile, Henry thinks about strengthening his body. So he goes to the guardhouse to look for Byrne, who is also a sword expert. He finds Byrne in the backyard. Henry asks Byrne to train him with the sword. Byrne happily accepts. He asks Henry if he has learned swordsmanship somewhere else. Henry denies it, but Byrne knows about what happened in the duel, so he is not convinced. They have a sparring match. Henry attacks his master but Byrne dodges him. He counters with a knee strike but Henry blocks it with his hand. Byrne swings at Henry but he dodges. He launches a counter attack which Byrne is able to block. Byrne gets serious and he swings at Henry. He is able to block it but the force is so strong that his hand starts trembling. Byrne continues to pressure Henry but all of his attacks get blocked. After that, Byrne comments that he is amazing. Henry claims that he learned his skills by watching other people fight. Byrne reveals that his fighting style is the imperial swordsmanship. Henry states that he needs to improve his stamina. Byrne replies that stamina is important but he needs to improve his footwork. Henry doesn't appear to be convinced, so Byrne drops his sword and tells the Henry to attack him. Henry thrusts forward multiple times but he hits nothing but air. After a while, Byrne appears behind him and pokes him at the nape of his neck. They stop and they look at the ground. Their footprints are visible. Byrne points out that Henry's footprints are very irregular compared to his. So they needs to focus on his footwork and his physical strength. Henry spends the rest of the day training. After that, he goes home and writes the name of his targets in his notebook. Then he pulls out a map and marks the location of his hidden treasures. At that moment, Koer enters his room. He tells Henry that Kevin has returned. He goes to meet Kevin but he finds a group of servants outside his brother's room. They tell him that Kevin is in a bad condition. He enters the room and sees Mrs. Morris crying. Mrs. Morris blames him for everything. Henry asks the doctor what happened to his brother. The doctor replies that he was attacked by some wild animals. After hearing this, he tells everyone to leave the room. Kevin tells his brother that he was able to bring home the green crow flower. Henry tells him that he did well and he can go to the academy. Kevin goes to sleep and Henry uses healing magic on him. Thereafter, he leaves the room with the green crow flower. Henry immediately starts working on the magical blue potion. He adjusts the concentration to fit his body so that he will not die after ingesting it. It didn't take long for the potion to be completed. Henry drinks it and he starts to feel like his body is melting. He sits down as he endures the pain. He can feel the strength entering his body. The fourth and fifth circle appears on his chest. This puts him at the same level as the sorcerers. Suddenly, he notices a bad smell. He takes off his shirt and it looks like it hasn't been washed for years. Then he looks the mirror and discovers that he has become muscular. He notes that he has awakened. Awakening is a phenomenon where one's body evolves to receive more magic. As a result, he has become much stronger. He explains that the smell was caused by the wastes that came out of his body. He is very happy with the result and he cleans himself up the next day. Koer sees him and he is surprised to see that the young master has grown taller than him. He wonders what happened. During breakfast, his family notices that he has grown much bigger. They ask him what happened and he just says that he woke up with that body. He goes to Byrne who is also shocked. Byrne tells him that they just need to focus on footwork training for now. After that, he goes to the edge of a cliff and jumps down head first. As he was about to hit the ground, he uses the skill feather pull allowing him to land safely. He tests another skill called shockwave. It causes an explosion and rocks start falling towards Henry. Henry defends himself with the skill called frozen field which freezes the area around him. He keeps on practicing his magic along with his footwork. After a while, he becomes convinced that he can take on his master. He challenges Byrne and all he needs to do is land a hit within 3 minutes. Byrne warns him that there will be a punishment if he fails. The challenge begins and Henry tries to touch his master. But Byrne evades him. As he reaches out to his master, Byrne grabs his arm and throws him. Undaunted, he gets back up and charges but he keeps on getting pushed back. The time runs out and he fails. Regardless, Byrne is impressed by his progress. He receives more strength training as punishment. Henry goes home and lies on his bed. He thinks about why he failed and how he can improve. Henry remembers Hector Meyer who came up with an odd footwork technique. He decides to ask for his help. Wanting to improve, he uses restoration magic on the necromancy book and reads it. The book explains how to call on a specific soul. He needs an item of great sentimental value. So he performs a ritual which causes Scar, the frog-like spirit of trade, to appear. Scar asks him who he is. Henry introduces himself and reminds him about past events. Scar doesn't believe Henry and demands to see some magic. In response, Henry conjures a small dragon with his right hand. The spirit believes him now and he asks for what he wants. Henry states that he needs Hector Meyer's legacy. Scar agrees but he demands something of equal value in return. Henry promises to tell him how he got resurrected after he receives the legacy. Scar opens his mouth and the king's engagement ring appears. He gives the ring to Henry. After taking the ring, Henry tells him that he was brought back by black magic. He states that the attempt of the necromancer has failed and that he replaced his soul. Henry reveals that his experience was different from that which was written in the necromancy book. Upon hearing this, Scar gets upset. It seems like he expected more from Henry. Scar spits on the ground and then disappears. After that, he puts the ring at the center of the summoning circle and starts chanting gibberish. This causes the door of the netherworld to open and Hector Meyer emerges from it. Hector asks him where he got the ring. Henry lies and tells him that he had it the whole time. He introduces himself and Hector still remembers him. However, Hector isn't convinced that he is the same person as the wizard Henry. Henry explains that he died and he got revived by black magic. He goes on to explain that the world has changed a lot after Hector died. Henry became a hero, but the cruel Emperor Silver had him executed. He adds that the Emperor is just an incompetent tyrant and so he wants revenge. Hector asks why he got summoned and Henry tells him that he wants to learn swordsmanship. Hector reminds him that he's a wizard. Henry replies that his current body has the blood of a knight so he wants to improve his skills with the sword. Hector wants to know why he's been holding on to his engagement ring. To which he replies that he kept it in his honor. Hector gets flattered. He agrees to teach Henry but it won't be for free. In exchange, Hector wants to live in the world again. Henry declines because it is a difficult task. He explains that he can't perform revival magic and he only got revived by chance. Hector gets sad because he doesn't want to return to the netherworld. So Henry suggests an alternative. They would seek out necromancers and return Hector to the world as an undead. Hector agrees to this and he puts a curse on the engagement ring as insurance. They begin training immediately. Hector teaches Henry his footwork and it's very different from the one Byrne knows. Henry is determined to take Byrne down.
Henry struggles to learn Hector's footwork. Hector asks him what he will do after he defeats Byrne. Henry says that he will master aura but Hector just laughs at him. He wants to become a magic knight once he masters aura. Hector thinks about it and notes that Henry has the potential to become the greatest magic knight. They spend more time training. Eventually, Henry defeats Byrne. Having mastered Hector and Byrne's sword skills, he thinks that it's time to leave the manor. Byrne tells him that he's a genius for coming up with his own style of swordsmanship. He asks about Henry's plan and Henry tells him that he's going to join the army. He asks Byrne about the noblesse oblige, which is the duty of noblemen to share their blessings to serve society. Byrne tells him that his family isn't subject to such duty since his father's rank is not high enough, but Henry still wants to do it to earn the respect of the people. He tells Byrne that he's going to the Forest of Evil, which is a very dangerous place. Byrne is against it, saying that his father would never allow him to go there, but Henry tells him that he already has his father's permission since he won against Byrne. Later, Byrne goes to Hans and asks him if he gave Henry permission to go to the Forest of Evil. Hans tells him that Henry can only go there after he defeats Byrne. Suddenly, Henry arrives saying that he has already fulfilled that condition. Byrne confirms it, and Hans gets upset. Henry tells his father to give him a chance to prove himself. He is aware of the dangers that lurk in the Forest of Evil. It is one of the most dangerous areas in the Empire where devils have appeared. Hans doesn't want him to go there because Henry is his heir, but Henry has already made up his mind. He bids his father farewell. That evening, Hans approaches Henry while he's training. He tells his son that he has really grown up, so he allows Henry to go to the Forest of Evil. Hans gives his son a letter of recommendation telling him to give it to a commanding officer named Iselin. The next day, Henry leaves with his horse. He bids everyone farewell and he uses his magic to make traveling easier. A week later, the guards of Fort Caliban see him approaching. The head of the guards, Hervant, asks him to identify himself, so he throws the family crest at his direction. Hervant sees the family crest and he orders the guards to open the gate. Henry enters and Hervant apologizes for being rude. Henry introduces himself, telling them that he is going to join the army. He shows them the letter of recommendation and a guard escorts him to Commander Iselin. The commander greets him, asking him if he is the son of Baron Hans. Henry confirms it and they have a discussion. Iselin tells him that he is an interesting person since not a lot of people want to stay in that fort. He asks Henry why he wants to stay there. Henry tells him that he wants to learn by fighting the monsters. Iselin laughs and tells him to get into position. Suddenly, the commander grabs onto his sword and attacks Henry. Henry pulls out his sword and uses defensive magic. He is barely able to block the attack. Iselin comments that he wasn't expecting Henry to block. After that, the commander swings his sword at Henry, but he blocks it once again. Iselin is surprised and he wants to try again. At that moment, a girl named Teeny arrives, telling him to stop. Iselin states that Henry is the real deal and Teeny thinks that Henry could be a monster. The commander asks Henry why he let his brother go to the academy. He replies that he couldn't see any hope because he thinks that the Empire is corrupt. Iselin states that it's very bold of him to say something like that, but Henry says that he is loyal to the Empire, not the people. Iselin laughs as he agrees with Henry. He tells Henry that it was a good idea to give up the academy because it has a tight hold on Porum's family. Iselin reveals that Behold, the person who beheaded him, has retired, so Kington Porum has taken over and corrupted the academy. Henry gets informed that there is another test. They take him to a secret room where he sees a monster. Iselin tells him that he needs to knock the monster down for him to be acknowledged. He accepts the challenge and prepares for battle. Henry approaches the monster, and he steps on a barrier. The monster suddenly lunges at him, and he barely dodges its attack. Henry charges at the monster, slashing its neck, but it has no effect on the creature. It tries to hit his head, but he dodges the blow. After that, he uses the circle step to attack the creature from behind. He hits the horns behind the creature, and it gets knocked down. Iselin asks Henry how he discovered the creature's weakness. He said that it was just feeling. Since its skin was hard, he thought that maybe the horn was its weakness. Iselin tells him to prepare for basic training in the education corps. Teeny states that the training is already taking place, but Iselin thinks it's perfect. Henry will join in the middle of the class as a privilege for passing the test. After that, Henry eats and drinks with Iselin. The commander starts telling him about his story, and he finds Iselin annoying, so he casts sleep magic on him. However, it doesn't work, so he spent the entire night listening to the commander's tales. The next morning we see Henry in a carriage with Teeny. She gives Henry some papers containing information about the basics of his training. He glances at it for a while and returns it, telling her that he has already memorized it. Teeny thinks he's a genius. Eventually, they arrive at the education corps. There, he meets his officer, who tells him that he is just an apprentice, so he can only talk informally to other apprentices. His officer tells him about the upcoming test. Henry wants to take it even though he didn't attend the previous sessions. The officer gets offended, asking him if he thinks the test is a joke. But he tells his officer that Commander Iselin personally trained him, so he lets him take the test. The officer warns him that he will receive a punishment if he fails the test. Henry thanks his officer. However, the officer thinks he's arrogant, and he wants him to fail. He prepares a special test for Henry. On the day of the test, Henry finishes early. The officer immediately checks his answers and discovers that Henry has a perfect score. He congratulates Henry and tells him about the martial arts class in the afternoon. As he leaves, the officer thinks about how difficult his special test was. This makes Henry famous in the education corps. Later, Henry introduces himself to the class. They are about to have close combat sparring. The instructor tells Henry to know his limits because it is still his first day. He immediately gives them a test where the cadets need to knock each other out. The test ends when only one cadet is left standing. In the first match, he goes up against Cadet Need. Henry assumes a weird fighting stance, and Cadet Need thinks he doesn't know how to fight. He charges at Henry, who immediately knocks him out. The cadets are surprised because Need is one of the best cadets when it comes to combat. The test goes on and Henry easily knocks out many of the top cadets. He thinks about his training with Hector and how it is helping him win. The top cadet Ronan now stands against him. Henry moves behind him and Ronan immediately reacts with a kick. He manages to block it, thinking that he underestimated Ronan. Ronan charges at him with a unique footwork. They exchange blows and block each other's attacks. But Ronan eventually lands a hit on his head, causing him to get dizzy. He immediately follows up with a takedown. Ronan is about to punch him while he is lying on the ground. Thinking he's about to lose, he uses magic on Ronan, making him lighter. After that, he grabs Ronan's leg and throws him to the wall. Everyone gets surprised as Ronan lies on the floor. He wins the match and ends up getting a perfect score for all of the tests that followed. Later, he sees Ronan, who is obviously upset. He shakes hands with Ronan, who introduces himself as Ronan Porum. Henry gets surprised. Ronan tells him that he was adopted into the Porum family. It is revealed that Kington Porum actually defeated Behold, making him Night King and Grandmaster. Because of the system of noblesse oblige, he had to send someone from his family to serve in the military, and he was adopted for that reason. Ronan asks Henry about his training since he has never seen such skill in close combat. Suddenly, Henry tells him that they should be friends. Ronan finds him weird, but this actually makes him happy. They become sparring partners and Ronan always loses to Henry. Still, they become good friends. Eventually, the training ends and they are about to attend a celebration. At that moment, an officer approaches Henry, telling him that Commander Iselin is looking for him. He rides a carriage with Teeny. She tells him that Iselin wants to have a separate celebration with him because he finished at the top of his class. Teeny adds that the commander will grant one wish for him. Later, they arrive at their destination and Teeny tells him that she can call her in the evening if he needs company. Henry gets confused but she just leaves without any explanation. He goes to Iselin who has prepared food for him. While they are eating, Iselin asks him about his wish. The next day, Henry tells Ronan that he had a celebration with the commander. Ronan tells him about a rumor that the commander favors him. But he replies that it was just a tradition for the top of the class. Ronan asks him if something else happened while he was with the commander. Henry shows him a holy sword that he received as a present from Iselin. Ronan gets jealous. After that, Ronan tells him that he has been assigned to the infantry unit. He already has a plan for climbing the ranks. Ronan asks him about his unit, and Henry tells him that he has been assigned to an independent company known as Caliburn's Needle. It is revealed that after Iselin passed out from drinking too much, Henry met up with Teeny. Henry told her that he wants to join a company where he wouldn't get disturbed much. She pointed to a chart and explained that he should join the Special Forces. Teeny warned Henry that Special Forces are dangerous, but he doesn't mind. So she directed him to the commander's affiliate Special Forces and told him that he can start right away. Back in the present, Ronan boards a carriage. Before they part ways, Henry tells him not to die and Ronan tells Henry to be careful. The carriage leaves and someone calls out to him telling him to board the carriage. He arrives at the Caliburn's Needle military camp. Commander Salomon checks his documents, and he says that they are not ready to accept him. He takes Henry to his official residence. It is a total mess. Salomon tells him that he should finish cleaning it up by the end of the day, and then he leaves. Henry thinks it's impossible for a normal human to finish it in a day. So he uses his magic to instantly clean the place. Outside, we see Salomon with some soldiers. He tells everyone to meet their new lieutenant, Henry, in his residence. They laugh thinking that Henry's place is still a mess. But when they arrive at Henry's residence, they are surprised to see that it is already very clean. Henry is having a cup of coffee, and he casually asks them what they're doing there. Salomon tells him to greet the members of the unit. He goes out and formally introduces himself as the new lieutenant. Henry observes that the unit is not yet ready to accept him since the late Lieutenant Carter died on a mission. He approaches a soldier named Hoden and asks him where Lieutenant Carter used to stay. Hoden takes him there, and he looks around thinking the soldiers might rebel against him. So he leaves the place carrying a box that seems to contain Carter's belongings. He orders them not to move as he burns the box. The soldiers get shocked and one of them gets angry. He steps forward and attacks Henry. But he misses and Henry kicks him away. The man falls to his knees. After that, he reprimands everyone in the unit telling them that they should be ashamed because their actions won't make Lieutenant Carter happy. The commander hears about this and he gets furious. Thinking that Henry will grab power, he calls on two other officers named Hugo and Vogue to come up with a plan. The following day, Henry meets up with the three of them. Hugo tells him that he hasn't learned aura yet, so he has no right to be the new officer. He adds that Henry is arrogant. Henry asks him if he's scared of him. Hugo gets furious and he challenges Henry. They have a duel and everyone in the unit watches them. Salomon is confident that Hugo will win. But Henry doesn't plan to go easy on Hugo. The match begins and Henry strikes at Hugo's sword, causing it to break. Everyone gets surprised. Henry bows at Hugo, telling him he has done a great job, then he leaves. Later, we see Henry with the commander, and he is given a mission. He looks at it, and he is surprised to see that the task is to patrol a Class 9 area. The next day, he goes to Iselin and tells him about his mission. He complains about how easy the mission is since he has already proven his skills by defeating Hugo. Iselin gets shocked because Hugo can use aura, so he asks Henry what he wants to do for his mission. Henry replies that he wants to go to the Class 6 district. Deep down, he just wants to use it as an excuse to look for his hidden treasures there. But he lies to the commander, telling him that he has never been there, so he would like to see it. The commander allows it, but he tells Henry that when he returns he would give him the mission that he really wants. Henry receives Lieutenant Carter's paperwork. He learns about the mission that led to Lieutenant Carter's death. In that mission, Carter went after a creature called Black. The commander thinks that it is a demon that enjoys playing games. Henry asks Iselin why Carter went after Black. Iselin explains that Black murdered Carter's men back when he was a company commander in the infantry division. After his men died, Carter applied to the special forces wanting to avenge his men. Iselin sent him on that mission so that he could get his revenge. The commander adds that Carter was the best candidate from the unit, but his foolishness led to his death. Black is now a threat to Fort Caliban, and it needs to be stopped. Henry goes through the paperwork and he learns that Black can transform and speak to humans. Later, we see Henry back in his unit. He tells the deputy commander that the previous mission is cancelled and he will be patrolling the Class 6 district instead. Henry adds that he is going to go after Black. Before the deputy commander leaves, he gives him the box containing Lieutenant Carter's belongings. Henry tells him that he would never burn it so they can take care of it. The deputy commander thanks him and apologizes. After that, the deputy commander leaves. Henry assembles with 9 others and they leave the fort to patrol the Class 6 district. He uses a spell that makes his group less conspicuous to the monsters. This allows them to arrive at the Class 6 district safety zone without encountering any resistance. Once there, Henry tells his men that they are going to get a lead on Black. He shows them a drawing of a kin mushroom telling them that they grow near Black's home. Henry divides them into 2 groups with the deputy commander as the leader of the second group. Before splitting up, he gives the deputy commander an item that will allow him to track his location. It is revealed that he is just using Black as an excuse and the kin mushroom will show him his hidden treasure's location. However, after hours of searching, they couldn't find anything. The soldiers start to have mixed feelings about their lieutenant. That evening, Henry summons Hector. He tells Hector that he can't train until he finds Black. Hector calls him stupid, suggesting that he should just summon Carter to ask him about Black. So Henry puts Carter's report in the summoning circle and starts chanting. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe if you want to see a part 3 of this recap. Let us know in the comments section below. Till next time.